So hi there, this is Stuart Haston.
This is Nicole Scott.
And today we're going to be doing a deep dive, really in-depth review on the HTC M8.
So if we dig deep into the hardware here, we can see first of all, it's got a 5-inch screen. This is a Super LCD 3. HTC is one of the only companies currently using this technology. Inside, you've got a Snapdragon 801 system on chip from Qualcomm that's backed by 2 GB of RAM. The 801 system on chip also uses the Adreno 330, which is a great GPU. You're going to have fantastic gaming with that. Around the rear side, you've got a dual camera setup. So you've got a 4-megapixel camera here backed by a depth perception sensor. The 4-megapixel might sound a bit low, but HTC are plowing their own path with this kind of technology. They're using ultra pixels, so 2 micrometer pixels rather than a standard 1.2. In terms of cameras on the front, you've also got a selfie cam, which is a pretty generous 5-megapixel. Inside here, you've got a 2,600 milliamp hour battery, so you should get all day out of that, no problem. So in terms of overall design, this is clearly very similar to the original HTC One. It's a little bit longer, of course, because we're going from 4.7 inches to 5 inches on the screen. And that length actually might be a problem for some people because obviously your notifications bar is so much higher up. But in terms of how it feels in your hand, I think this really is pretty unbeatable. I mean, it's one piece of brushed aluminium. It's got a very kind of curved edge to it here. So you can see that the tooling involved in creating this. I don't know how HTC are doing it, but they're currently, I'd say, ahead of pretty much everyone else in the industry right now. I think one complaint, though, that a lot of people would have, and I kind of agree, is that we have a HTC logo on the back, which looks fantastic and is very well tooled, and it's kind of etched on there. But why do we also need to have this HTC logo down here? On the original HTC One, you were getting your buttons were either side, so the space kind of was used quite efficiently. I think on this design, it almost seems a little bit like hubris, almost like HTC has to be on the front and the back, and I'm not so sure I agree with that. It certainly would seem to add a little bit of length, which, as I mentioned earlier, could be an issue for some users.
So the question on everyone's mind is, how does this year's model stack up against last year's model? Well, right off the bat, you can see that the M8 is significantly longer than the M7, and that has to do with the increased display size. But we've already shot a 8-minute comparison video between these two devices. We're going to show you a small segment, but if you really want to get into the dirty details, you should watch the entire thing. So what we have here is a Super LCD 3 display. Now, some people do complain that the images don't pop quite as much as what we have on the Super AMOLED displays that are on, say, the Samsung Galaxy S5, but I have to admit that I think that these look pretty darn good. In the past, I think HTC has had a little bit of an issue in terms of color saturation and quality, but I think that they fixed that up with the M8. Now, if we take a look, say, at this photo, the blacks are black. Like, the blacks are really black. So you can see there that we do have the edge of the display. Now, just to quickly point that out, some people do complain that there's accidental touching because of the edge-to-edge display, but I think that that's crap. I mean, you can clearly see faintly there that there's the black from the edge and then there's the black from the actual photo. So that's a really good black. But anyways, let's check out the viewing angles. So if we just kind of put this off to the side, I think we have some good color saturation edge to edge anyways. Maybe I'll choose a different photo here. Maybe something like that. There you go. I mean, that's some good angles. You don't get much whiteness. So overall, excellent display from HTC. So here we are outdoors checking out the display on an overcast day. Let's check out the glare. Viewing angles are pretty wide. Now let's go up and down. There is a fair bit of reflection, but still overall not too bad. The brightness is quite good for outdoor viewing. So let's take a closer look at the camera. We have a 4-megapixel ultra-pixel camera on the back. Now, ultra pixel means that it has a wider pixel, so the pixel itself lets in more light. So technically they have a higher quality pixel over more pixels. So even though 4 megapixel is very low compared to, say, the Z2, which is a 20 megapixel camera, or the 1020, which is a 42 megapixel camera, this is only 4, but the wider pixel kind of allows for a lot more. And then this is actually a dual camera. So this is a depth of field camera here at the top. So you can do really cool things like U-focus, which I'll show you shortly. And then the flash, they've taken time to make this more enhancing of neutral and natural skin tones. So there's a yellow and kind of orange there, you see. So this is similar to the flash on the iPhone 5S. On the front, we have a selfie cam. So this is 5 megapixels. So the difference is 5 megapixel, normal pixel, 4 megapixel, ultra pixel. So in terms of picture quality, the difference that you're going to see is there's going to be a lot more detail on the rear-facing camera, and though this is technically higher megapixels, there'll be less detail. Even the colors and the punchiness will still be quite vivid. So instead of talking about the camera, let's just go right into the app and check it out. So in general, one thing that I find very surprising is that even though they've included this depth of field camera here for the hardware, in their modes, they don't have a U-focus mode, right? Selfie, for the front-facing cam, like I was talking about, dual capture means that you can take a picture with the front and the back. I'm not super fond of this because I'm not sure what the usage scenario is, but it's still interesting. Pan 360 has never really worked for me. The few times that I've tried it, the photo has been misaligned, which is very disappointing. So Zoe is from the HTC M7. It's been around for a while. It creates auto highlights, reels, and makes very professional looking content out of your content. Then we have camera and video. So let's dig right into the meat and open up the camera. Okay, so let's just open this up. Right, so I wonder why they're locked. So let's head into here so we can do HDR, which is letting quite a bit of light. There's anti-shake mode in here, manual. I have to admit, I like the way that these settings are arranged here. Very nice on manual. Come on, okay. We go portrait, landscape, backlight. We actually have an independent backlight video to see how this stacked up against the S5 and the Z2. Spoiler alert, this phone does not handle backlight well. And then there's even a macro mode, which I kind of call food photo mode. But what we're going to do is we're going to put this into auto right now to show off some cool photos. So let me just take a quick picture so you'll see how quickly the photos take on this. Alright, so let's check out the photo. Alright, so I've just taken this great photo. So now let's head into Edit. And then you can see that we have U-focus right here. So it processes the camera, and you can tap to focus. So see how that blurs that out. We focus on my face over there. What about this guy? Or him. You can see that you can take really professional looking, really great looking shots. There's a bunch of other, let's just pull out of there. Do foreground, actually let's just do seasons. I'm not sure who really uses this, but let's just head into a gallery for a second so I can show you a couple of really, well, my favorite 3D here. It's just with some lemons, so we just hit Edit, Effects, 3D. And I think the cool thing is that you can actually see this in the video. That you can see the lemons moving. I mean, it's a really cool, it's a really cool effect. So let's just take that off. And then I'll move the camera for you. Do you still see? They're not moving. They don't look 3D. Now, one of the things that they've also done inside the camera mode is inside the gallery is they've switched things up a little bit. So you see that we have locations, it'll go by city. Then we have albums. And then we have timeline. So timeline is just everything that you've taken. So if you tap on something, you have to tap down in order to check out what you've seen. If you tap up here, it like launches into Zoe, and then you have like a movie that's being made of the last things that you've seen. Albums is kind of the same. Yeah. They've kind of changed the gallery layout. I'm not super fond of it. So the M8 is a great camera for everyday kind of shots. It's quick, U-focus is kind of cool, you can see here. But I think when it comes to, if the lighting conditions aren't perfect, then this isn't really the camera for you. I mean, you can clearly see when we go to these bar shots that things are looking okay, nice general lighting. Everyone says it takes low light pictures really well. This is something that I really have to disagree with. If you look at this pint of Guinness, it's noisy, right? And this is the thing that I found, and it's unclear. Like, look how noisy that is, noisy and unclear. This is one of the things that I think that you're just going to have to live with. And we also shot a video of me lighting my hand on fire in slow motion. All right, so you can see as soon as it's not perfect, it just blows out, right? It doesn't handle backlight well. It doesn't handle light flares well. Light bleeding is a problem with this one, and noise when it's kind of dark out. So it's not the best camera on the market, but it will do for general everyday shots. It'll more than do. In perfect lighting conditions, it's great. Hopefully we can see this bird's feathers. The audio on the HTC M8 is amazing. The front-facing speakers here are probably the best on any smartphone currently on the market. I've done an extremely detailed speaker review, putting this up against the Z2 and the S5. The S5 loses, by the way. Single speaker. But let's listen to the M8. The two front-facing speakers here are actually 25% louder than what we had on the M7. Oh, that's the worst song ever. Sorry about that. Here's a better one. So you can even see that you can head into the settings where you can turn on and off the boom sound. You can't do it while it's running, but it's just nice little software additions that HTC has done with the sound that make this, I think, the best smartphone on the market in terms of sound quality. But make sure you check out our comparison because it's just good to see another phone kicking another phone's ass. HTC Sense 6 is great. It's one of the quickest UIs around. The scrolling up and down, you can actually customize that. So grid size 4:3 or 4:5, which gives it just like a slightly more svelte look. You can customize the font that they use in here. When you head up into Blink feed, you can decide to get rid of it. Oh, there we go. Remove. And then you can add it back in. The widget system is great. The panels are quite lovely. Let's just install that over there. There we go. One feed. All right, so it's a really nice UI, and I'm not personally the biggest fan of this UI, but you know what? It's gotten a lot better, and the ability to customize is just so great. So you can change the order that these appear in. But let's take a closer look at what other applications come with the HTC One. So Zoe has been around for a while, but it's definitely worth mentioning. It's a really nice camera application, just the camera apps in general. We went over all of that in the camera section, so I'll leave it. The car section, or the car application, so it gives you a nice way to interact with your phone. Now that there's a lot of rules and regulations around automotive and the use of your phone while driving. You can also use this as a TV remote, which is right here under TV. I love this feature. I absolutely love this feature. I fell in love with it a long time ago. And it's just absolutely, once you have it, then you can just really never have to look for the remote ever again. It's a really fabulous feature. As much as I do bag on HTC in general about not being a huge fan of Sense 6, you have to give it to them that this iteration has a lot of really great features. Even if we just head into developer options, one of the things that I have to say is just so fantastic is the high performance mode. So we all know that hardware manufacturers game the system just a little bit by allowing the phone to auto-detect when benchmarks are being run, and then it allows them to increase the performance to get better scores on the benchmarks. But HTC is super cool about that because they've actually included that feature for you so that you can turn this on, right? So you have to have the power and battery saving off, but you can turn that on. So software-wise, HTC is really stepping up. Like, they're doing a really good job. So though I'm not a huge Sense 6 fan, I have to give a lot of respect to HTC for the ability to customize.
So if we look at the overall spec sheet for this device, I mean, it's a top tier, it's a flagship device, and you're seeing the same Snapdragon 801, 2 gigs of RAM, similar kind of storage, you got a great looking screen. Okay, the battery's a little bit smaller, but generally, this is a flagship phone, and the hardware specs read that, right?
Yeah, definitely. The one thing they could have done is they could have put in 3 gigabytes of RAM to future-proof anybody who's going to buy this long-term for their apps that will need 3 gigs in the future.
There's one possibility.
That's the one. And then, yeah, I would say that would be the big one for me that it's missing.
But overall, 9 out of 10. Design. The design of this thing. Okay, it's similar to the original HTC One. I mean, it's iconic, right? You're going to look at this and there's no mistaking what kind of phone it was.
Yeah,
plenty of HTC branding. We'll get to that in a minute. But overall, I mean, it's one piece of tooled aluminium. It feels in your hand as good as anything on the market.
You know, even I'm going to have a hard time finding anything wrong with the design of this phone. There's no other phone that feels this good in your hand. They've just, the hand feel is unbelievable. They've just done something with the edges here that it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So like the way that the back end curves and it comes back around, and then it has, like, this edge isn't sharp at all, which you had.
I think that's one improvement on the original. Was it was a little, the sides were a little square and corners. So
the other only thing that is wrong with this phone would be this enormous band here. They should have either kept the capacitive touch buttons down there so that there was a reason to have that. To me, it just feels like the capacitive touch buttons went up here, and then they couldn't figure out how to make the phone shorter with all the technology they had in it.
Yeah, it just feels like, I mean, it's doing absolutely nothing except remind you that it's a HTC phone. So you're not getting Super AMOLED or IPS, you're getting Super LCD3.
And though this isn't considered the top display choice on the market, I think that HTC's done a really good job with it. The color saturation is there, the viewing angles are there. It's a really sharp, crisp display. There's really no doubt about it that they've knocked it out of the park. And usually LCD3 you might not think has this ability, but HTC has done it.
It's fantastic.
There's some good and some bad in this one.
It's a mixed bag.
This is a mixed bag camera. It's when the lighting conditions are perfect, there is no better camera on the market.
Taking fantastic photos.
Fantastic photos, the extras, the 3D, the depth of focus. There's just so many great things about this camera.
But if you're not in ideal conditions, if it's slightly dark or low light environment, or it's not the same quality of point and shoot that you're going to get with, say, the Z2 or the Galaxy S5.
You know, it's funny because a lot of other reviews in the market have just been pointing out how amazing the HTC One is for low light photography, and I just tend not to agree. I feel that when the light goes low, you lose so much of the sharpness and so much of the focus, right? And some of the other, like Kubert over at Uber Gizmo took some really great shots of, like, you know, a street scene at night with like water reflections with different colored lights, and it looked stunning. But something like that, where it's a low light, well lit street, that came out well. But you know, it's like the Guinness photo that you took in the bar. As soon as the lighting wasn't there and you wanted to take a close up picture of something, it's noisy, it's grainy, it can't focus.
And that was a few shots as well. It just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So it depends on the environment you're in. You can take amazing photos with this device, but it's not going to be easy at times if the environment's not great. So, audio?
Best on the market.
They have it.
They nailed it.
They totally nailed it.
HTC killed it. So it's what, 25% more?
More than the previous, which was
the one,
pretty damn loud.
Really loud.
Well,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, I can imagine some teenagers going to be cranking this up on the back of the bus, and they're going to be annoying a lot of people because
a little like ghetto.
It's really loud. It's kind of it's as loud as you'd have your TV in your living room, kind of loud. You know, it's kind of like, how have they done that?
Bringing back the ghetto blaster.
Yeah.
So actually, guys, I have done a really detailed speaker comparison on this, an audio quality test. The S5 versus the Z2. The Z2 also has the dual front-facing speakers. So if you want different genres of music to see exactly how this sounds, we have a video for you.
The performance is great.
Yeah, the performance is great. It's Snapdragon 801, 2 gigabytes of RAM. Sense 6 is quick. It's a top industry performer. There's no doubt about it.
When you get down to the benchmarks, it's also doing very well.
Doing very well. That may also be because they got caught gaming. What was it, at 2.2 that one time? Or
optimizing.
Optimizing. They're calling it optimizing now.
Right. But I think for most users, 1 or 2 points in a benchmark score, it's who cares? It's the actual user experience, and the user experience is there. Battery. So in theory, 2600 milliamp hour battery. It's not one of the biggest on the market. I mean, Sony going all the way up to 3200 on the Z2.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it's all about, does it get you through the day? Okay. If you're a heavy user.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I think the time now where we're worried about phones not getting you through the day, it's kind of less and less. And with this new generation of phones, you've seen also some pretty cool power saving features as well. So if you really do feel like your battery's going to go soon, you can switch that on.
And the power saving mode on the M8 is pretty good, but it's definitely not as good as the one on the S5.
Yeah.
Their ultra power saving mode is the best. I think that one can't be beat.
That's kind of a first to go to that level of low power usage.
Yeah. Ultra saving.
But do we knock a few points off HTC because they're not giving you the biggest battery? I think that's kind of fair.
I'm not a fan of blink feed. I never have been. I like on Sense 6 that you can get rid of it quite easily and seamlessly, and it's really nice that HTC has finally learned their lesson about including a lot of bloatware. Yep,
definitely less bloatware than, say, Samsung, who are still pretty happy with the bloatware, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, they're happy to the point where you need to have SD cards and just to have any internal memory space.
It's true. I mean, HTC are definitely doing better in that area. But I think the new Sense version 6 is an improvement on previous generations. It's slick. I like the menu system.
It's fast.
Yeah.
And it's fast. You really can't deny that it's fast. And HTC has put in a lot of effort onto this device with the incredible stack of features on the camera.
And it's all pretty easy to access. You find that nothing is buried too many menus deep.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I'm a fan. I like it. I like Sense. Do we think it's a reasonable price?
It's on par with every other flagship on the market right now. It's coming in at around the same figures as the S5, the Z2. But when you start looking at
But times they are changing.
Times are changing.
So
like the OnePlus.
The OnePlus is, of course, the big game changer. But you've also got other players, and like Xiaomi also coming out of China doing some awesome devices for a lot less than the premium on this guy.
So this goes for what, $650? The Xiaomi will come in at $2.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty big difference.
We'll see how this plays out in the months to come. Maybe the price will come down. But I think for right now, my feeling is that if you were a fan of the original one and you really fancy the M8, you're going to pay.
You're going to pay, exactly.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's going to be regarded as one of the best phones that HTC ever did. And I think a score of 8 out of 10 overall is pretty spot on.
The design of this device is going to push Samsung into something else. I don't think that Samsung is going to be able to get away with doing plastic phones for much longer if HTC keeps on building devices like this.
And you got Sony using glass as well.
Yeah, and Sony is using glass and aluminum as well. I mean, I was a huge recommender of the One.
Yeah.
Right? I suggested this to so many different people. Half of my family owns the One because it just feels like a tank. The people that I think should be buying HTC devices are those who don't refresh their handsets often.
You think because the longer refresh cycle, you're going to get a longer ownership time out of...
If you're going to buy something like the S5, right, it's made of plastic. The back's going to probably wear out a little more quick, but you can replace parts on it, and you can replace the battery, which does allow you to keep it for a little bit longer. But for something like this, you can drop it a lot more if you have issues with cracked displays. Like if you're somebody who's physically hard on their devices and you want to keep it for a long time, I suggest something like this. If you keep your devices for a long time and really take care of them, then something like the S5 might be a better choice.
I think it's a tank. It's a 160-gram tank. It's solid. I'm into it.
That's one thing that I could never get past on the HTC. Though I was a huge One user, the button on the top, I could just never get past that. Right? But that's, if you're used to that and it's something that you like.
I think if you've used HTC much in the past, then not going to be a problem.
But for me, it was the fact that I was constantly flipping it around, right? If I'm pulling it out of my pocket and I'm talking to somebody and I want to turn my phone on because I don't want to be rude and look at my phone all the time, I could never figure out where it is. And the top buttons are very flush to the device. They're very flush.
Stand out much at all.
Right. So unless you're feeling for the camera button or the camera ridges on the back, to me, I always spent way too much time flipping around with it. That's why I liked things like the Z2 with the side button, right? Or the G2, which would be my favorite button position ever, right in the middle and the back. The LG G2, I think, is one of the most stunning devices on the market, period.
I think, though, HTC have been kind of using the button in this space here for some time now. So I think once you get people used to a certain design,
if you're well, of course, if you were an HTC One user and they changed the button position on you, you'd probably stop being an HTC One user. So overall, the editor's choice, we both love it. Even though I love it,
I probably love it a bit more than you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it with a few more caveats, I think.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's an absolutely fantastic device, and it's definitely one of the best smartphones ever.
Ever. You need to use the arm.
Until the next one next year.
Until the next one next year. Yeah. So that's been our in-depth review of the HTC M8. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. If you want to know something about the HTC M8, let us know in the comments. We'll do our best to answer you. So this was Stuart Haston.
This is Nicole Scott.
From MobileGeeks.com.